You are good to go.
Great, thank you very much. Well, good morning and welcome to the East Bay Regional Park District's Board Executive Committee meeting on Wednesday, August 2nd. We're beginning today at 11:08. Welcome, new recording secretary. Elizabeth, would you call the roll, please?
Thank you. This is Elizabeth Tucker, recording clerk, taking roll. President Waspy, Director Coffey, and Director Eccles. As Park District staff coordinators in this meeting include General Manager Sabrina Landreth, Deputy General Manager Dr. Anna Alvarez. Today's meeting is held pursuant to the Brown Act. We are providing live audio and video streaming. Members of the public wishing to make a public comment can do so live via Zoom by submitting an email or leaving a voicemail. This information is noted on the agenda. If there are no questions about the meeting procedures, we will begin.
Okay, and we don't have minutes from the last meeting, but we'll approve them at a later date. So we'll move to public comments for items not on the agenda. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Madam Clerk, have we had any correspondence of anyone? No, then we'll move.
No, we have not.
Great, thank you. Then we'll move to the GIS program unit update.
Good afternoon, or I guess it's still morning. President Waspy and members of the committee. Brian Holt, Chief of Planning, Trails GIS. I'm here today to introduce our GIS staff, and the presentation today will be given by Cara Betcher. I guess I should start off with GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems. And it's really the way that the Park District kind of tracks and maps a lot of our geographic information and a lot of the maps and the displays that you see during our presentations and really the backbone of the district. The GIS unit is led by GIS supervisor Dave Druckheimer. He's on a vacation, so he's not able to be with us here today. Also, Meg Peterson is on staff. And then we have with us, there's Cara Betcher, Mary Rose Kulik, Nadia Targulian, and Christy McCaskey, who comprises our GIS staff. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cara, who's going to give you an overview of our GIS portal. It's a tool that has been developed for staff's use to be able to access our GIS information. And she'll be able to show you just a lot of the neat things that they've been working on. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cara Betcher. I'm a GIS analyst. Okay. Thank you. And I'm here to show the GIS portal. The GIS portal is a shortcut on all of the computer laptops or computer desktops, and it's available internally to all park staff. Here you can see all of our 6 staff members, 1 GIS supervisor, 1 GIS programmer, 2 GIS analysts, and 2 GIS technicians. We updated the portal this year. Now, when you click on the portal, you can see a dashboard of all of our requests. For staff to make a request, they just need to press this GIS request button, and a request form pops up. Once this is filled out, the request comes in as an unassigned request. You can see since the beginning of the year, we've had 477 requests. 423 of them have been completed, with 39 still in progress. And then the 3 new requests are here. When we log in, we can assign the requests to ourselves. And what's great about this dashboard is in the lower left, you can see the types of requests we're getting. 50% of our requests have been map requests so far this year. If you hover over the pie chart, you can see That's been 223 map requests. And that can be anything from a map update to create a new series of maps. Also popular is spatial data requests. And that can be getting subscriptions to important spatial data, sending data to consultants, or providing data to other departments. About 11% of our requests are for web maps, apps, or story maps, which I'll show next. And then we've had 5% of requests have been for analysis. That's to answer any questions that GIS is capable of answering, such as predictions or estimates. And also we've received 17 drone flight requests. In the middle, there's a list of the requests right now. Oh, let me go back a second. Also, there are other options here. You can see requests by department as well. We're receiving the most requests from stewardship. About 30% of our requests are from stewardship. Almost 18% have been from planning, with about 8% from DECO and 8% from park operations. But you can see the number of requests from every department that have come in. And then finally, some requests are district-wide, and then others are specific to areas within the park district. On the right, you can see the requests that are specific to areas within the district, and look at projects that have been completed by area or where the unassigned requests are. And then in the middle is a list of all the requests. These are the requests in progress, but we can also see all the completed requests and the unassigned requests, which is helpful for anyone who has submitted the requests. We create applications for a variety of products, for a variety of purposes. Our popular apps are ParkView. ParkView is our multi-purpose app. It's a web map that contains a variety of tools and layers. And when you look at the applications on this site, each one has a description, who can access the app. It's either public, only available to district staff, or restricted within the district, and a description. ParkView contains live data to the GIS layers, live connections to the GIS layers, so that when people are editing on iPads or editing in a web app, you can view updates. But really, this is the multi-purpose area where you can see park entrances, park parcels to get the parcel history, and for example, ward boundaries to see which parks are within each ward. And we can get a pop-up of information about the ward. This is helpful for a variety of uses, and we have layers specific to projects or general district-wide layers here. We also have Park Finder is the public app available on the Park District main page. It's for the public to use to look up parks within zip codes or parks by activities. Here the user can enter a zip code and it will zoom to the zip code and show the parks. You can click on the entrances to get access to the park brochure map. The get directions, the location, and the name. Also on Park Finder, the entrances are up to date. So if an entrance is closed, it'll show up as red. So this is helpful in communicating which entrances are open or closed. And there's a slider to find activities. So if you wanted to find where archery is available, you can see that Briones and Roberts are available. There are also a variety of other apps. One shows cell phone coverage within the district. Another shows the land stats. These are dashboards to show a variety of interactive information. You can select the park. Oops. There we go. Select a park to zoom to the area and see which areas are in land bank, which areas are open, and get a total amount of acreage for each category. And then also there is an animation to show acquisitions by year. The brightest green are the acquisition for each year here. On our popular page, this is where you can see all of the general use apps. There's also an emergency app for earthquakes, air quality data, and wildfires, a 3D photo viewer to zoom around and see the park district from a 3D view, as well as ward lookup and fire history. We also have applications by department, and the applications by department are specific to the department. For example, we have a ADA project editor where you can click on the ADA project on a map and fill out and update information, and then that information is live in the project summary dashboard. There's also, these apps are more for staff in each department to be able to edit their own data and to see summaries that are project specific and make decisions about the projects they're working on. Within the last 2 years, or within the last year, we acquired a drone and have been able to take drone flight requests. We've done 17 flights. And this map on the drone flight tab shows where flights have occurred. You can click on the drone icon and see and get access to everything that was collected. This is a Wildcat. You can see video and images, the ortho photos, and a 3D mesh of the project. This was flown for the flow trail alignment. Another example is at Don Castro. This was flown to show the flooding and siltation of the lake. So this is the before, and this is the after. This is helpful to be able to see changes and make any high resolution measurements. Another example of before and after is the Nunn property. You can see the effects of flooding and change in vegetation here on the Nunn property, the before and after. That's the before, and this is the after. We have about 50 iPads used for data collection out in the parks. 25 are kept in GIS services and can be checked out. And we set up data collection maps or forms for people to use for their data collection work. And what's nice about the iPads is as soon as information is entered, it's updated and visible in Park View or any apps that contain the layers that are being edited. And then this services tab really just describes what I've all of the GIS services that we provide, which the examples are already in the other tabs. And then finally, the GIS request form, which ties it all together. Once data is collected, staff can request what they need with the data, whether it needs to be analyzed, whether a map needs to be created, or if they could use an app or dashboard to display the information. And that is the GIS portal.
Great. Thank you, Cara. Again, Brian Holt, Chief of Planning Trails GIS. So as you can see, a lot of, I'm sorry, what did I do here? A lot of background work that goes into to support the entire district through the GIS department, through the GIS unit. So they are critical to kind of keeping us on track in terms of, knowing the land that we bought, really key in our park planning. As much as we like to get out in the field, it's a lot more efficient for us to be able to kind of survey and do things. And a lot of Cara did not have time to go into just the depth of data that we have regarding our stewardship resources. A lot of we're able to track our various development activities through GIS, and just a lot of information that really serves as kind of a lot of the institutional knowledge here for the district. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions, and thank you very much.
Questions, comments from board members?
Well, first of all, Cara and Brian, thank you very, very much for the presentation. The GIS, all of the applications are so powerful, and it's really fun to have this portal now so that the staff can access it more broadly and make requests and have more awareness of the power of the technology. So I think this is absolutely fabulous. I had a few questions. I was just curious, when staff submits requests, is there, and you said that the GIS staff can go in and sort of choose an assignment. Is there some prioritization, or how does it work? Like if there's, an urgent request versus a more regular request, how does that
There is an option to set when you need the product by, and so it shows up as urgent if it's within a week,
Mhm.
and then usually we discuss who would be the most appropriate person to handle the request.
Great. That sounds great. I was curious too you mentioned that the public has access to the Park Finder, which I think is fabulous. Do they have access to any of the other apps or just the Park Finder?
There are a few other public apps. One is cell phone reception, where the FCC shows there isn't cell phone reception within the park.
Oh, that's good. That's helpful. And how is this may not really be a question for you, but I'm just wondering, how is this publicized for the public? Are they aware that there is this Park Finder and they can also see the cell phone access, or how is that communicated to the public?
That's we meet with public affairs, and then they decide to put the link on the main page or where the appropriate link should go.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks very much for the presentation. I should just say, I appreciate all the work on the portal, because I think this portal is fabulous, to be able to have everyone be able to use the technology. But also I wanted to thank the team more generally for all of the other work that you've been doing really over the years with GIS. And it's so incredibly important, especially, really with everything. But I know the applications in firefighting and prevention is just huge. So thank you for all of that. Go ahead.
To add, other than I really appreciate how you're evolving the use of drone photography and photos and just exploration. And I've particularly noticed that we now have presentations on land use plans that will have a drone show us what a trail's going to be like from looking down. I mean, that's just really interesting and helpful work. I have a somewhat of an interest in whether drones are being operationalized and handling real-time issues, but that wouldn't be GIS. You folks do research, right? So that would be probably something to direct to public safety or operational folks. But as we just sit back and look at all the interesting uses of drones that land use managers are employing these days, I'm beginning to become curious about whether we're exploring some of those uses. I noticed the other day that New York State was having a particular problem with sharks off the beaches, the public beaches, and they were using drones to just hover over the coastlines and be able to get advanced warning to the lifeguards and folks if there were sharks in the area. And that occurred to me to be public safety issues in which you could employ drones. So I guess I'm just talking out loud because it's something that might be a topic to look at in the future, just out of curiosity about park management and drones.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that really briefly. So I do know public safety has used this drone in the past for specific purposes, but they also have put together a preliminary proposal, and I know the chief's working on refining that so that they actually would have in their possession their own, and with some attached policies that would go with that, depending on which jurisdiction we're in. So that's something certainly where law enforcement, both police and fire, frankly, are moving towards using these drones much more frequently. Really practical approach. So you are likely to see something in your upcoming budget on that.
Great. Thank you, guys. It's very impressive what you're doing. I was here when you started this stuff, when interns were walking around with backpacks with little yellow things, figuring out where every restroom and every horseshoe pit and everything else in the district was. But it's very convenient and very good to be used. I guess one question I would have is, you said there's some have employee access, some have levels of access. I continue to forget, am I an employee, or would I have the same access as employees would to some of this information?
I honestly don't know. And that's something that we'll need to
Thank
look
you.
up.
Not alone.
I can see no reason why the board could not have access to all of this.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and particularly want to thank our team. They work incredibly hard. Often get messages at 6:30 in the morning or so. I have to learn to turn off my phone so I don't get woken up. But really a backbone to the department and backbone to the district for sure. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great presentation. Our next item is Peralta Oaks North.
Good afternoon. That was loud. Good afternoon. It seems like it's my first time here. Executive Committee, I'm Ren Bates, Chief of Design and Construction. I'm here to give an update. It's informational, no action for you to take today on Peralta Oaks North project. Bear with me while I share the screen, please. Thank you. I almost said acting. It's become habit. Here we go. Hopefully, great. So to start off again, I'm Ren, and I'm going to give an update on Peralta Oaks North. This is a building that's right across the street here. You can see it from your perch on the dais. It's right. So we are here at this building down in the corner. Sorry, I don't have my pointer here. And the building that we're talking about is across the street. Sorry. Okay. Great. Thank you for the help. So this building is proposed to be we're trying to make a campus here. So this will be a public facing building. The search for public safety office or building space began in earnest back in 2006 when there was a first assessment for public safety. Our public safety department is a large department. It's staffed approximately 500 personnel during peak summer season, including 161 full-time employees, 75 of which are sworn police officers. I don't know if those are exactly right up to date, but that's the general sense of the size of our department. The department includes police, fire, and lifeguard services. And so they've been located up in Lake Chabot for quite some time now, and that facility has proven to be inadequate. So like I said, it started in 2006. And then in terms of an assessment and the search for a building started in 2009. So there's a lot of effort put into finding a new building. Sometimes these buildings, as a public safety building, you can't go out to the market and find a building that's ready. So you're going to have to do a lot of tenant improvements if you wanted to buy an existing building. So that's where we are in terms of this. There was a lot of work done from 2009 to present or 2019 in terms of looking for different buildings. The building that we're talking about was purchased in 2019. So since that time, we have done quite a bit of work to prepare that building for occupation by the district and to be utilized. So the work we've completed to date is after the purchase in 2019, we identified a building program. So what this means is it's a space need based on needs and not necessarily wants. Because if you ask somebody what they want, they'll say, I want all this kind of stuff. And so based on it, part of this was narrowing down how big the department was, what their specific needs were, taking into consideration how public safety and their operations have sort of changed and being updated, considering how people move and whatnot. So that was part of it. And so that gave us our square footages and how we could apply those to the building across the street. In keeping with the environmental ethos of the district, it was decided that we would build this to LEED Gold standards. And so that's been part of the process. And that is a decision that is important to get at the front end because it includes all of the design process, material specifications, and things of that nature. And then we also identified that it would be a public facing building. And so the boardroom would be shifting over there. After that, we went into conceptual and schematic design. So that is, we met with board members to sort out what the boardroom layout would be. We met with the finance and management services to figure out the lobby layout and public safety to make sure that as a public safety the building that would house public safety, that entry lobby would be safe and accessible, and how it would accommodate both our public users and sort of folks that but folks that wanted to directly interact with the police department. And so trying to lay that out so that it was user friendly, that it was safe, all of those things. And then we identified administrative space and what departments could potentially move over to that building from this building, considering that we're growing out of this building, as I understand. So then once we took that, we went into design development, which is detailing all that out. As part of that process, we did 2 neighborhood meetings. We did one online. And then there was an online meeting that we had, and we presented the project and sort of said what public safety did or does. And then we had an open house in November of last year, which we invited the neighborhood. We had a good turnout of folks that were neighbors that came, and we toured the lobby of the building and gave people an opportunity to see what would happen. As you'd expect, there were neighbors, and they had questions, concerns about how it would be operated, hours, and things of that nature. But it was great turnouts. Public safety was there. We spoke to the neighbors. We got good feedback. It was a nice event. So based on that, then we got into design development. We've completed 65% plans. They have been submitted to the city of Oakland as of the end of last year. We had to get planning approval and building approval. We've gotten planning approval. So we are now waiting for building permits. There are 3 building permits we're trying to get. One's the tenant improvements, one's PZ, which is outdoor, and then a demo permit. We have just successfully negotiated those permit fees down to about a quarter of what we initially thought they were going to be, or what the city of Oakland wanted us to pay. And so we are issuing payment for those. And as soon as we get that, like I said, we have planning approval, and we'll be moving into building permit review. So they're looking at these plans. What I'm going to show you is in terms of floor plans. So there are 4 plans or 4 floors over there. The basement floor is internal parking. As a reminder, the blue that we're looking at is public safety building, public safety space. This will be the same for all 4 floors. I'll go through them quickly because you've seen most of these already before. District admin is green, all staff is in orange, and public is this sort of tan color. So the floor is basement. Any internal parking to the building, so anywhere, in other words, any spaces like this would only be for internal staff or board members. We wouldn't allow any public parking within the walls of the building, and that's for a safety precautions. So this would be mostly public safety for storage, evidence, and things of that nature. This is the entry lobby or the floor lobby. So the entrance from the street is down here. And this would be the lobby space. All of the green is district admin. This area here will be the new boardroom. This is configured such that this wall can be opened and this wall can be opened, so that if the district decides to have a large event, this whole space can accommodate that. So, and then also this front door will open. So it's a nice interior, exterior. It could provide for nice public events if the desire is there. So that was part of the design intent. What would move over here would be HR and reservations. So those are public facing sort of administration. So the decision was made to move those folks, and they will move accordingly. Here's the second floor. As you can see, this is where we get into the predominance of public safety. And this is the same for the floor above. There are some shared spaces for all staff, including lunch areas and other rooms. But that's generally the plan. Here's some renderings. I'm not going to be able to do the 360. I'm not that savvy, so I'm not going to torture you trying to do that. But these have been shared before. If you'd like to see them, I can send them to you. But these are lobby or renderings that Toby shared in several presentations. So this is looking at the lobby into the boardroom. Again, this partition can be shut and opened as necessary. The interesting thing about the development of this and talking about the boardroom is that this has been subsequent to the pandemic. And so we've talked about all of the new audio visual and how we can do things with how we do them now. And so that'll be incorporating it into it. And part of that discussion was, well, if this door is open or closed, how does that impact audio and the recording if we're having a hybrid meeting? So that has been interesting for me. And it just is telling of how our projects change with time, regardless of how we best try to accommodate everything we think about. Here's a look at the lobby entrance. The reception area is here. It's enclosed. This lobby space is unconditioned, which means there isn't heat or air conditioning in there. So part of this is why this is enclosed is to, again, provide conditioning and for safety reasons, and provide views throughout that lobby area so that whoever is sitting in there can see. Here's just a general rendering of the boardroom. The furniture here is not the exact furniture, it's just a rendering, so we're not getting into that. As part of process, we're actually working with business services right now and developing furniture and finishing FF&E, which is fixtures, furnishings, and equipment. So we're working on that now. So this is just a rendering. And then here's a third floor area, which would be a common sort of space that folks could use to sit in. Again, furniture here is just schematic, kind of a just a present representation to give an idea of what that space would look like, not necessarily all the furniture. So back to current schedule. So that's what we've done to date. As I mentioned earlier, we are in City of Oakland planning review, actually not planning review, building review. So our plans are at 65%. The intent is to have building permit review for the building done. If there are any comments, we will have our architects make revisions to those plans. We'll resubmit, get approval, and then we'll go out to bid. So we're hoping that with the payment of permit fees today, we will be able to get that review process done such that we can have revisions to plans done by the end of the year and go out to bid beginning of next year. That will be a process that will take a little bit of time. In the intervening time, we're also going to try to do a pre-qualification process for contractors. This is a very, very large project. And so we want to do a pre-qual process. We've tried different things in the past. We've been moderately successful, unsuccessful on our previous attempts at pre-qualification for contractors. So we'll be working with legal to sort of vet that out. And our hope is to have a good pre-qualification process such that we can get a contractor that's built public safety buildings before. So we're working on what those parameters are, but that will happen this fall before we go out to bid. We hope to begin construction in April of next year, spring, and complete. We expect it'll take 18 months to build. So hopefully done by the end of 2025. It's ambitious. I can see we're doing our best to do that. And then hopefully move in January 2026. Like I said, we hope to have it turnkey so that we're moving in. So we've been folded into the development and the architectural programming and consultant work, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, so that those, when the building's done, the same contractor will be responsible to outfit the building, that we can just move in so that we're not trying to get the building and then outfit it once we're done. So anticipating and hoping, fingers crossed, for a spring 2026 move in. Here's our current estimated project cost. This is preliminary, because we don't have all the details worked out, but this is where we are. I will note that our construction management, we came to the board in April of this year to award a construction management firm. They are under contract now. We have a kickoff meeting with them and the architect next week so that they can get together and the construction manager can look at the plan set as is and give bidability and constructability review and help us with the pre-qualification process. So we are excited to get moving on that so that they can give us, again, these would be edits put into the plan such that we get a good plan set and bid for public bidding. Our funding strategy at this point is a mix of issuing certificates of participation. This is the same funding that was done in 2012 to get money to develop the building or build the building that we're using now, and general fund money. So that's being developed as we go. That's most I have about that. That concludes my update. I'm happy to answer questions and field any other items as necessary.
Any questions from members of the board? Sure.
I guess the question is, when will we have some breakdown of how we're going to finance the project? I understand there's a combination of various vehicles potentially for debt financing, including COPs, including promissory notes, but there has also been talk in terms of committing reserves, significant reserve cash. and then I suppose general funds. So I at some point would anticipate we'll get a detailed, I don't know who's here to talk. Deborah isn't here to really a fairly concrete financing plan for this project. It's large. There's a lot of debt involved, and potentially a lot of reserves being involved, which we haven't done in the past. So that's all important stuff that I think needs to be laid out for us. We're pretty far along in actually scheduling construction now. So I think that's important.
Understood. I will take it and then turn it over to the GM. I've been talking to Deborah Walker as we are approaching, as you've noted, construction. She's not here right now, but I'm pushing her a little bit more as we need to know what we're funding. And to that end, we are going to have more. Our cost estimate is being refined because we'll have all of our details worked out. So we'll have a better number on that. And the anticipation, my hope is that I can work that out and get that to you all so that we have a firm understanding. I'd like to have a firm understanding of how we're funding it as well. So.
Yeah, I can follow up on that as well. So we have engaged with our financial advisors to give us some recommendations on the best package. To your point, Director Coffey, we did set aside some funds in your last budget into basically was part of our surplus from last year from the general fund. But there's a lot of I think policy discussion that needs to take place with the board around that, about what the exact mix is. So, and finance is very clear about that. So they are engaging real time right now with our financial advisors to bring a recommendation to you all. My direction to them was to bring that as part of the budget process later this fall as well. So much more to come.
Paul.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Well, first of all, Ren, I did want to congratulate you on your promotion. Very well-deserved promotion. It's great to see you in this role officially. And thank you for the presentation. This is very exciting. It's good to see this moving along. I had a question about the reception area in the new building. Obviously, it's important to keep our employees safe, and it's also important to be welcoming. So I was just curious, like how does it work? Like if somebody has a question, is there like a window, or how do they actually talk to someone in the reception area?
Yeah, as you come in the door, there will be a reception desk that was showed in one of the renderings, and there will be someone there staffed full time, much like the building is now. And so, as I understand it, I mean, once we get into it operational, they'll have to figure that out, but it's set up so that someone's there to greet you. And we've had discussions of there would be general. And if there need to then speak with public safety, they could call and have someone come down and escort them up to public safety if need be. So there will be someone there full time. And then if there's someone that wants to have reservations, they have their own room that's separated and has a door so that folks can go in there, and it'll kind of limit the interactions that happen now with our reception and the reservations, where you might walk into this building and be sort of confused as do I talk to those folks or those folks? So we're trying to streamline that so that there's one point of contact when you enter, and then they can help direct you to wherever you might need to be. And most anything that someone would be there for would be for reservations or HR. And so anybody public would not necessarily go up to the second or third floor, and the elevators are set up such that you couldn't access that as a public member.
Right. Okay. So the picture that you showed of the reception area it looked like you said it was sealed off to keep people comfortable because it wasn't going to be.
Right. So it'll be conditioned. It'll have heating and air conditioning in there.
But it's not like a separate box. I mean, it looks like it's its own box.
It'll be its own box.
Okay. So, but that's also where people would go to get referred to HR or public safety.
Correct. So they'll have their own little space. It's for safety reasons. It's for conditioning, and that they can come in. It'll be like the desk upstairs here, but it'll be sort of enclosed and not have someone to the left. Okay. If you walk in the main building up here. Okay. Is that how I'm not?
Yeah, no, I was just trying to figure out, like, if I'm a member of the public coming in for whatever purpose, and I wanted to talk to the receptionist, how would I access them?
They would be right there at the door. They're going to be in that space. They'll be facing the front.
Okay, so there's not like glass. They're not behind glass.
They are behind glass.
Oh,
They'll be there, and it's
They'll be, yeah, okay, you guys will work it out.
Yeah.
I trust you. I was just sort of intrigued by that when you, so I was like, how
Yeah,
does
we
that
went
work?
back and forth on, they will be there. I mean, it's kind of like if you go places now that still have the gas up for, yeah, so it's.
Yeah, I got it. No, that makes sense. Okay. Okay, great. And then the other thing I just wanted to note, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment, which I've said before. I do believe for a project, especially for a project this size, 70 million in construction costs, that we should have a project labor agreement. But I realize that's a board discussion, but I'm just, putting it out there since we're talking about the this project today.
Duly noted.
And that's it for me. Thank you for the presentation.
Thanks, Ren. Did anybody do some analysis of what the difference between lead gold and lead platinum would have been? I know it's a lot of money, but was there a certain number?
In the analysis there was, I don't have that off the top of my head. It was significant. I think that we determined that there was an analysis of silver, gold, and platinum. Platinum, as I recall, was quite a bit more. I can find that number out and get it back to you. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's been a little while, but there was an assessment to see where that was.
Yeah, from what I recall, actually, I think the platinum was a lot more expensive because we're not starting from scratch. It's, we're not, if we're just beginning, not remodeling or redoing a building, it would be probably more affordable, but it's a tough. Yeah.
To add to that, we are looking to have that building be net zero eventually. And so there will be solar panels above the parking lot. Like the whole goal is to get that to net zero, which I think is a pretty admirable goal. I mean, it competes with platinum lead, I would say.
And so you discussed some neighborhood meetings. Was there any negative reaction, or what was the reaction from the neighborhood?
They seemed I didn't see any negative reaction, like in my interactions with the neighbors. There was they were concerned. I mean, they're used to the county's sheriff's office and coroner's office right there, so they had questions about operations and sort of, if they obviously have refrigerators. Like there's some operational things that make noise at that, and so they raised concerns about that. And there won't be a lot of noise. I mean, most of the concerns that I heard were neighborly concerns, like how is this going to impact us with noise, because it's a police or public safety building where there could be activity at late hours. But I think the flip side of that is that everyone seemed to be encouraged or excited that there was a public safety entity going in right there. So I think it was the feedback that I heard and was shared is that it was pretty good. There were some concerns, but everyone was fairly excited to have this move in.
Great. And so nothing visual. Was there a tower or a communications tower? Or
there will be a communications tower that's necessary for the district's communications. So they have to have sight lines. The specifics of that, I'm not sure. It's going to be in the back of the parking lot. There will be a radio tower, though, that we're going to install.
But are the residents, were they made aware of that?
Yes, and there was not. I didn't hear a lot of that. So we did share that there would be a communications tower to be part of this.
And then with the permit submittals, are things going well with the City of Oakland? I mean, do you expect any bumps in the road?
I hope for the best.
It's a leading question.
So it's just we're behind a little bit schedule because of the time that it's taken for the city to review, and so they've not met our hopes and expectations thus far. I'll just say at that, but we're hoping that with this we've turned a corner and that we're moving forward. So that's our kind of critical path at this point. So yeah, I think it's as best as we can do.
And I do just want to say, Brent mentioned it earlier, but his team was able to negotiate down the permit fees down significantly to 25% of what the city was demanding. And so we're cutting the check, I believe, today.
Yeah.
And our hopes is that will get it moving. But I think just like many cities, they have a massive backlog in getting these things approved. So we'll put on as much pressure as we can.
Great. And so there are 4 floors
Yes,
remember.
there are.
And there's only one that's really the basement. The rest of
Yes.
them, you'll be able to see people and there'll be windows people can look out.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And I guess my question would be the fitness center. What's the square footage of the fitness center?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I think we're still debating what that mixed use space will be.
Storage rooms will be.
So I'll have to get that square footage back to you. I don't know. It's on this floor plan for level 3. It's shown here. So I will.
So it is open to all staff.
Yes.
And I guess finally, does a construction management contract for $3 million, that include some form of liquidated damages if things don't get done on time?
So it's that 3 million. This was an old slide we actually got when we went out to RFP. It came back at 2.5. So we've already cut that cost a little bit from that initial slide. That's a great question that I think we're still working on process-wise. We don't have liquidated damages. Again, liquidated damages is for contractors. And so this is a consultant and those don't necessarily apply. But what we've learned in utilizing construction managers is we were much more specific about the needs that we have and we're required there. So in other words, we'll need inspectors. We need special inspectors. And we were very clear about the requirements for all of those things such that we have the right people there to help us, and to that, I hear your concern and I share your concern about how do we make sure that the construction manager is being our representative as opposed to just being a consultant between the two. We are learning as we go with the ones we have. Contractually, there's nothing that's really binding in this one. I've mentioned before that we're working with Jason Rosenberg to sort of figure out how to tighten those up and to contractually make some of those requirements for a construction manager. It's all in process. I share your concern and we are trying to procedurally figure out how to best make this construction manager and all construction managers a true agent for us and make sure that they are looking out for our best interests and not their companies. That's the best I can answer right at this point.
All right, thank you. Looks like a great project. Any members of the public? There are no members of the public. Anyone else have any comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
This is exciting.
Yep.
Our next item is future agenda items and announcements. Do we have any announcements? Do we have any future agenda items that people would like to talk about? Sure. Would any go ahead, Colin? All right.
Let folks leave. I looked at the agenda topic and was trying to think of what do we have out there that's been floating around that needs to come back. And a couple of thoughts came to me, and the other is just within the general purview of an executive committee, which deals presumably with governance level issues, either issues involving the purview of the governing body itself and its operations, or policies and other, policies in general that will get to the governance level of the organization. And a lot didn't come to my mind, which is, either a function of there being all sorts of things out there that are more operational in nature that I have trouble bringing, back to a suggestion that it is within the purview of the executive committee. And that was a problem with this, is the ability to readily assign something to operations versus executive purviews. So with that, just a few things that came to mind that have been out there and hanging out there in particular, that I think come back to this committee. And if I'm wrong, let me know. issue of the policy that was just about 6 or so months ago, where we delegated authority to the general manager for urgent needs in terms of land use adjustments that were both urgent, needed to be done to deal with the basic mission and purpose of the park district, as well as there were notice requirements to the board of directors. And I remember debating with then Director Lane over whether that should sunset in 6 months or just be reviewed in 6 months. And I even have a little vagueness in memory of whether it was supposed to come back to the full board or this committee. So I wanted to throw that out there as just something that I think is supposed to come back to the committee, if not the full board. So that's out there. And then a caveat to that, it was used to implement that authority, I believe, was used to implement the Briones test project. So in my mind, there are two issues out there. One is the general policy that we created, which was controversial, at least with, I guess, 1 or 2 people out there that follow us. And then the Briones project, which might be ripe just for an update. And also within the feedback needed for a use of that authority that was undertaken by the general manager. My personal feel for it is that it's working out just fine, and the delegation that we created makes all sorts of sense to me and continues to. I just want to make sure we're up to date on our obligation to be held accountable ultimately for that delegation of authority. Also right up there with the planning issue is I think it might be useful, if not at the full board level, for the exec committee to get a presentation in the not too distant future on the overview of master planning process and timeline and all the tremendous effort that will go into this organization's dealing with an update to the what is now the 2013 master plan. And I'm curious because Mr. O'Connor's off in retirement land at this point, but I think he left me with the understanding that there was going to be a master plan element, as has been promoted among the environmental coalition that are our partners out there for master planning for trails, and that it was going to encompass a specific process that Jim had in mind of master planning for specific parks, and maybe incorporating it into what has been described as a master plan process district-wide for our trails. And I juxtapose that, and I always have, with the general update to the master plan itself, because there seems to me to be, and I've argued with some folks out in our stakeholder world about my belief that those concepts that have some synergy to them, that go together. So that is something that may be useful to come to this committee in the near future, if not to the full board. Again, I'm not sure what the vehicle is for that. To the more mundane, I have got questions from Director Lane and some other folks out there, as well as discussed with my colleagues a bit. I think you and I, Dennis, were just talking about it during that wonderful night out last night. We're very visible out there, so we get the questions about what we're sponsoring and not sponsoring anymore in terms of public affairs operations, things like the Doug McConnell show and Bay Nature, and what was the other we were talking about?
Events.
Well, there are events. We have the sponsorship policy, and maybe that needs to be addressed. But in any event, there's some very visible, the Oakland Zoo. We didn't do our Oakland Zoo sponsorship this year. And we have a very good relationship with Oakland Zoo management. Their night out, they had their last year. I remember a bunch of us went to that. Anna went to that. I went to that. And we didn't do that this year. And I was unclear whether that was an active decision or just for lack of attention. But I thought that there's enough of this very high level visible activities that we're involved in that it would probably be within the realm of governance purview to at least know what management's approach is to these issues. And again, at some point when we're talking about public affairs, I'm jumping into operational stuff, but I'm picking out more things that, for instance, I've been involved in Doug McConnell's show and get feedback from those things. And we're not doing that anymore. And some of our partners are, and at least a couple of folks have emailed and said, why aren't you folks doing that anymore? So that's an issue that I thought would be appropriate to talk about future issues for this committee. And I'll rest there.
Director Waspy, did you want me to respond to any of those or just leave them?
I'll let you make that decision. I'd love to hear you.
So on the, and I'm glad you mentioned the GM authority. We were tracking it. I believe it, and I know Jason and Jim are working on that. And I believe it was a 6-month or 1-year check-in. So we'll make sure that we agendize that for this
6 months and it goes to the full board.
Yeah, that's right.
It's full board.
Yeah. So I'm glad you raised that. I know it's on our tracking list. So we'll get Anna and I will follow up on the date on that. On the master plan, we do have that on the look ahead right now for November. It's being led by Brian Holt in the planning group. So we'll be coming to I think we were planning on coming to the full board, but if it's your desire to come here and then the full board, we can talk about that offline if that's helpful. And then the sponsorship activity, we definitely can bring something here as we are all learning with our new policy and processes and to have more transparency around that. I will just say I've gotten a lot of inquiries in the last, I'd say 10 days or 2 weeks where either members of the public or some of your colleagues have said, oh, why aren't we sponsoring X or Y? And I've said, no, we are. And so I think there's maybe some reporting out that we need to do. And because there's been, I think, some assumptions that we've stopped sponsoring some things that we always sponsor, but in fact, we're sponsoring them at the same level as before. So I think that warrants some better communication out to the board so you can see that. The zoo specifically, I actually think we will follow up on it, but there's no reason why if that had come in that we would have said no. So my guess is that they maybe drop the ball in making the request, but we'll follow up on that. That's it.
Yeah, none of this is earth-shattering stuff. It's just stuff that gets to us.
Thank you. Okay, future agenda items, I'd really like to talk about, and I don't know that it's at this level at the executive committee, but I don't know where it would be, but our liaison committee meetings. And I think of that based on my lousy experiences with liaison committees that I'm members of. It's nobody's fault here. But I noticed, I think the Contra Costa County and East Bay Regional Park District had a meeting yesterday or today or tomorrow or something going to happen, but I see it and I go, gee, I've been on the Alameda County Liaison Committee for 9 years now, and we've not had a meeting. And when who was it? Kara showed a picture of Culcanon and Don Castro. I think those are great examples of how we really need to liaise with the county because those are their flood control lakes that are filling with silt. And I know it's natural and sort of beautiful to maybe somebody like Matt, but anybody that drives into the park sees a mess and they immediately associate it with East Bay Regional Park District. And I think there's a number of ways we could improve that. And I think it would be improved by a maintenance agreement with the county to say, just have the flood control district give us some money. We'll maintain a trail around Culcanon, around Don Castro. Maybe we can interpret it a little. And I've even talked with some school board trustees at Castro Valley unified school district that have access from Canyon Middle School right down into what used to be called Canyon Lake. And there's this river or creek that they have developed. And the biology classes would love to go down there and study the creek. And they've done that in Castro Valley on Palmares Creek, their schools. They would love to have that type of opportunity. It's not our fault right, at all. It's just the flood control district doesn't have any money or doesn't have enough money. They spend it, I don't know, in other places for upstream and around. But I think I'd love to talk about that with them because we could improve their status also, except everyone associates those parts with us. I would hope, well, and I'm moving right down the line, the Fremont Liaison Committee, I would hope that we could schedule more meetings with those folks. I don't know what, future agenda meetings. I'd love us to discuss at this level, or maybe, well, it's operations probably, but I'd love to discuss fees. People have been talking to me about fees for parks and, maybe even the philosophical argument of should we charge fees to come into a park? But more specifically, I had a gate attendant approach me and say he's just being harassed more than once by people that are saying, why are you charging me for a dog to come into this park? I mean, you charged me for my car, which is okay. If we go at that level, but then to suggest that a car will create, and then he asked me why, or the member of the public said, why do you do that? And of course, he couldn't give an answer. And then he asked me why as a board member, why I approve those kind of fee schedules. And I said, geez, I don't know. I mean, what's a dog do without, well, getting too critical? If you hitch up 3 mountain bikes on the back of your car and bring it in and pay $5 to bring your car in, why do you have to pay an extra $2 to bring a dog in? What's the level of impact, or what's the reasoning behind it? I'd love to see a philosophical argument or discussion about that, maybe.
There are reasons. It's not a bad thing to discuss, but
I assume it's dog poop bags and things like that. Well,
extra maintenance.
And every responsible person would say, I pick up after my dog and I even pick up after everybody else. It's just, it's a point of contact that I don't know.
It's worth talking about. Yeah.
And well, I agree with I'd love to revisit and talk about maybe one more time before we have the report at the end of the year, 6 months before we get that on sponsorship and what we've sponsored, what we haven't, so that we've got to get an idea. And possibly well, it was brought up, the public safety move to Livermore, the helicopter move to Livermore. Is there going to be any discussion amongst the board over that or about that? Because I'd rather do that sooner than later. It's going to be a big, expensive move. And we've even talked about, I saw the numbers that Ren used about the amount of public safety personnel that are going to be up here. But I think there's been some board discussion and some changes in folks' attitudes of how you police and have substations at Belle Val and throughout the district, as opposed to everybody coming up here and then everybody driving out to where they're going and everybody driving back, and not just driving, but and time lost, but just the value of having a public safety officer go to work in the same place that a park ranger goes to work, and a park supervisor who has, and a lifeguards who, kind of get everybody together and focus on the same issues that you would have in specific geographic areas. So I don't know if there's some opportunity to do that. I'd love to.
That's a really good idea because it's something we're always talking about, but never in an organized fashion. So to have an organized discussion about that would be great. I don't know where here would work.
So I can respond to each of these. So the liaison committee, so Alameda County, I just recently met with the county administrator, and in light of, they've got 2 new supervisors there. So we did talk about trying to get something on calendar, whether we can get it, this calendar year, maybe a question mark, but it's on the list. So I will follow up with you on that, because there's a lot that we need to discuss with Alameda. Fremont, Lisa is now, it's been handed over to her. And so we can follow up on when that next meeting will be. The fee study is underway right now. Just to remind the board, you did fund that, I think, in the budget last year. So we do have a consultant who's been working away with staff. They are, I'm told, a draft is imminent. I have not seen anything yet. But there's certainly that's going to come to the board. And I believe it's going right now, tentatively, it's scheduled for October. Depending on kind of what that draft looks like, because I haven't seen anything yet, but it will have in there kind of what the real cost is of providing some of these services. And then it's really a policy conversation around what do we want to charge? You know, there's all sorts of questions around parking, dogs, swim fees. That was a big one that 2 years ago when I got here, we pressed pause on raising the swim fees. So these are big, kind of philosophical policy discussions that we need to have with you. So that is coming definitely in the fall.
So does that go directly to the board or to operations or here or where?
I think we were talking about in operations. You're mouthing something to me. What do you say?
We used to do it annually. There was an annual session
Operations, is that what you're saying?
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really up to you all. We're
And I think, we would do that operationally and then it was great. And it would break down that we got this couple $100,000 parking fees, couple $100,000 in swimming fees. And I don't know if it went down to dog fees and then some of these other fees we charge if it's specific. But then I think we ought to say, is it worth, I don't know, make $20,000 on dog fees? Is it worth, for lack of a better word, bad vibe and everybody that's got a dog that comes into our park is worth that? Just a little philosophical discussion.
and
some underserved folks that we keep saying we're welcoming. Is that a barrier? Is $5 a barrier to park at such and such a park? I mean,
and that's what this will be very different from the report that you've seen in the past, which is just, raise it up with the CPI kind of thing. They're really digging into that. And then there's the whole equity conversation around what we should and shouldn't be charging and why some parks
Exactly.
charge and some
Yeah,
don't.
that was the point I was about to make, because you've got some of the parks, like older parks, like Tilden, for example. I don't think there are any parking lots where you have to pay, at least none that I've ever gone to. But then you've got Chabot and other ones. And so I guess, you have to ask yourself, like, okay, why some and not others? And I mean, dog fee, actually, Chabot's the only place I've seen it, but certainly Tilden, Point Isabel, I mean, you don't have to pay for dogs. So it is very, an overall comprehensive policy makes a lot of sense. So I welcome that conversation.
Yeah. So that's the target is October. But again, tentatively, I've not seen the draft yet. And then the last one was on the helicopter. Absolutely. I guess I'm on the microphone here, but despite maybe what a member of the public has implied in terms of decisions being made around where the helicopter would be deployed and moving it from the hangar in Hayward to Livermore, no decisions have been made. We're at the very preliminary kind of exploratory phase of looking at what the benefits could be operationally to getting it out of Hayward. There's certainly some weather issues that ground it more often out of there than it would be in Livermore. And there's some co-location benefits possibly with Livermore, but very, very, very preliminary in those conversations that public safety has been working on, potentially with our real estate folks and with the city of Livermore /airport. But that would absolutely come either here or to the operations committee. So just want to let you know that we're nowhere close to making any decisions or recommending any decisions on that.
anything else? Well, this was really fun and you were so accommodating. Can I add hardly anything? Can I add a Hayward Area Recreation Park District Liaison meeting that we haven't had in 4 years?
Sure.
Great, thanks.
That's a good point, and it reminds me we should at this level, at the exec level, review generally the liaison roles. I believe, for instance, just take one that our Martinez liaison committee is obsolete. It's still on our chart. I still get a check box next to my name on it every year, but I believe our staff and Martinez staff agreed that it had served its life, which basically was the build out of the marina side of the shoreline park, and where we have our we have our half of that park and the city has its, and we jointly planned for both. both are all fully built out at this extent, and it just there's a need to have regular conversations at the staff level and even the board and city council level concerning the operations of a park that is truly jointly operated by the city and the park district, and very much coexist with each other and have the same, very much the same public use issues. And I've had to assure some folks in Martinez that communication hasn't gone away, or the public's ability to communicate with us hasn't gone away, but that committee's useful life has gone away, and it hasn't met in years. And that's because staff basically fundamentally believed it doesn't need to exist in an organized fashion. So that's something that we should perhaps formalize, and by taking it off that annual list of assignments that we have.
If I
Director
can add-
Waspy just reminded me of that.
Yeah, it's also listed in an appendix in the board operating guidelines. And when you revised those, there were no revisions made because you need to have that underlying discussion about which of these committees are still useful to you.
Great, thank you. It looks like we're coming to the end, and I don't see anything about board comments. Are there any? I'll add it though. Anybody board comments or any staff comments? I just like to say that I had a great time last night. Congratulations to the Public Safety Department who told it. I mean, not told, I witnessed doing an excellent job. Everyone did a great job, but it was headed up by Public Safety, if I'm not mistaken, and I think they did an excellent job. I would only suggest that, you know, we've got this powerhouse of a public affairs department. I was wondering, I was really happy to see Liz Ortega show up and was very happy to be there. I hope if there's a follow-up, do we say thanks for coming? People like that. I don't, just as a passing, because it's we need her support. She's been out to Oyster Bay. She's a supporter of ours, and I don't know, just a thank you note.
Yeah, we
That's
can
appropriate.
follow up.
Anyone else? Hearing nothing. Thank you all for being here, and we are adjourned. They got a bunch of pictures with her and stuff. Yeah. And I forget hers.